Well, there is a deal. The difficult bit is making sure the politics behind it work as well, because I don't think there's any doubt anymore that the UK government and the European Union have been able to put together a deal which they think solves most of the problems. Their difficulty is going to be to try to sell it to both the Conservative members of Parliament and behind them the Democratic Unionist Party in Northern Ireland, who are well known for their resistance to saying yes to just about anything.
And do you think that's likely? Do you think they will be able to sell it?
Well, I'm pretty sure that Rishi Sunak would be able to push a deal through the House of Commons, even if he has to resort to getting Labour Party support to do so. It's touch and go whether the Northern Ireland Unionists, in particular the Democratic Unionist Party, agree to it. And if they don't, it will weaken Sunak, but it doesn't stop him trying to get a deal through the UK Parliament in Westminster.
Why is there a Northern Ireland Protocol in the first place?
The reason for the Northern Ireland Protocol is that both sides wanted to maintain the absence of a border on the island of Ireland for reasons that have to do with what's called the Belfast or Good Friday Agreement dating from 25 years ago. The reason for maintaining the absence of a border in Northern Ireland is to ensure there is no resumption of the terrible scenes we saw in the 1960s, 70s and 80s of terrorism and other forms of quasi-civil war in Ireland. But Britain wants to be outside the single market and outside the EU customs union. Northern Ireland is an EU-UK border. If you don't have the border in Ireland, you have to have it somewhere else. And that's why the protocol came up with the idea of having it de facto in the Irish Sea. And that led to objections from the unionist side, who said, we are part of the United Kingdom. We should not have a border separating us, Northern Ireland, from the rest of the United Kingdom, namely Great Britain. And the protocol was an attempt to manage that. It's one which clearly wasn't working, and that's the reason we're having this revision going on.
So what do you think this deal will look like?
There will be so-called green lane for traffic going from Great Britain to Northern Ireland, only to Northern Ireland, and a red lane for traffic going from Great Britain with the intention of ending up in the Republic of Ireland, which notionally has a different customs regime. So therefore, the reason for having that separation is to get round the concern that Northern Ireland has that too many of the goods that British exporters wanted to send over to Belfast or other parts of Northern Ireland were being thwarted by paperwork or even restrictions. The second part of the deal that looks likely is a relaxation of the constraints on having VAT rules and public subsidy rules specific to Northern Ireland, which the EU had been resisting. These are big changes on the EU part.
So if Rishi Sunak does manage to get the political support that's needed, what does that mean for him?
Well, he's going to come out covered in glory, because if he will have done what successive politicians, starting with Theresa May, have signally failed to do, which is to get a satisfactory deal for Northern Ireland. And that's why it's important to stress that support from Northern Ireland is the key to this. He can ram it through, ignoring objections from the Democratic Unionists, but if he does, it will be a less satisfactory deal than if he does somehow manage to persuade them. And then behind this is the fact that the executive in Northern Ireland has been suspended for what seems like an eternity, and trying to persuade the Democratic Unionists, who would by then be the junior partner, to resume the power-sharing executive is also a big political prize for Sunak.
And the reason for the existence of the Northern Ireland Protocol in the first place is, of course, Brexit, the UK leading the European Union. What role would you say that Brexit's played in the situation the UK is in more broadly?
But there are all kinds of effects of Brexit which were left unfinished by the deal negotiated by Boris Johnson. Financial services unfinished. There's a time threshold for things being solved on fishing, on car batteries, and a range of other aspects of the new relationship between the UK and the EU. And we shouldn't forget that the trade and cooperation agreement signed with such great fanfare at the end of 2020 is due for a review in just 2 years' time. So there's much still to be done